Hi, everyone. This is Pam Torrey from Ingage, and you're listening to the Ingaged podcast. We know tech is changing the way people market and sell now more than ever. And on this show, I sit down with sales and marketing thought leaders and experts to learn how you can create, share, and measure your way to success. Today, we're sitting down with Chad Thompson, roofing sales strategist and expert at the D2D Experts, who's going to share his expertise on how to transform your sales team. Thanks for joining us today, Chad. I'm really thrilled to have you here on the podcast.
Thank you so much, Pam. I'm really stoked to be here with you guys, and I can't wait to get into some hopefully really educational content for these guys.
Wonderful. Well, Chad, this is not my first time talking to you. We've had you on our webinar network before, but I think you're probably going to be new to some of our podcast listeners. So I would love if you could start off by giving our listeners an overview of your background and what brought you to D2D Experts today.
Sure, yeah. So my background is in construction and sales. I've done everything from digging dirt for a living all the way up to installing commercial roofing, and a lot of the trades between. And then my other half of my life has been sales. So I've sold everything from Rosetta Stone in the kiosks in the mall to door to door selling TV, internet, home phone, home security, to obviously roofing and many things in between there. So that's kind of my background. I owned a roofing company for 4 years. I kind of got pushed into that, just out of necessity. Just couldn't find a company that really lived the core values on their walls. So decided to start one of my own. 4 years later, I got the opportunity to sell. It was really awesome. And when I did that, the founder and owner of D2D Experts, Sam Taggart, and I were in South Africa, and he kind of convinced me that I should share my experience and what I learned, as a contractor, as a business owner, as a sales leader, with other CEOs and sales leaders and sales reps, kind of my experience. So that's what I do now. I got the itch and couldn't help myself, so I started another roofing company, where I act as a COO, but I get to do a lot of stuff with sales as well within that organization.
Very cool. I do always love that the backgrounds of folks in this industry are so eclectic. Like
Yeah,
everybody they come from somewhere really different. We've had professional athletes on before. I
yeah.
have a degree in opera performance. We've had people who've owned roofing companies. We've had people who were, teachers or in business and then ended up in this industry. Everybody just kind of brings something different to the table.
Yep, absolutely. I love that about like our industry. It's
Yeah,
just
it's very cool.
yep.
So, Chad, the last time that I talked to you, we were having a really interesting conversation that sort of sparked some of the themes for this podcast episode. And we were talking about pattern interrupters. And I would love if you could tell our listeners about pattern interrupters. What are they? How do they disrupt the traditional sales approach? Why are they so important when we are in these sales conversations?
Yeah, I just did a training for GAF in Colorado, the largest shingle manufacturer and oldest shingle manufacturer in the country, and I was honestly appalled. I did a little bit of training on pattern interrupters, and every time I do a training like that in person, I ask, who knows what we're talking about? And I would say that maybe 1% or less of the people in the audience over the course of an entire day, four separate classes of probably 30 people each, they'd never heard of pattern interrupters. So I got really excited at that idea. I'm like, man, this has like changed my game as a salesperson, especially in like direct sales, door to door, things like that. You really need you really need to understand like what's going on with the homeowner, like when you're approaching them, and then you need to know the tools to use. So I think like with a pattern interrupter specifically, people like say I knock on your door. I'm doing door to door sales and I knock on your door. Like, what could you be doing? When are you expecting me? No, like you're doing something.
Probably doing laundry.
You're
I'm out
doing
here just doing
laundry,
stuff.
maybe you're cooking, maybe you're working, who knows? So your brain is operating towards something, it's focused, it's not with me. So what I need to do is I need to change your subconscious and your conscious mind. So how you can do that, or one of the tools that I've been really successful at creating a break and like getting you kind of interested in why I'm here, is a pattern interrupter. So one mistake that a lot of people make is they come to the door, say I'm a roofing company, I'm going to try and sell you a roof. The first thing that comes out of their mouth is like, "Hi, I'm Chad. I'm with this ABC roofing company, and I'm here to help you with a roof." You know what I mean? Like the first thing they talk about is what they're selling. You know what I mean? And I think that like you're kind of like missing the foreplay of a sale. You know, if you don't, you kind of like you need a transition. So that's what a pattern interrupter does. So like in a door-to-door example, one way that I'm a gardener, I love plants, and for whatever reason, middle-aged women open up the door a lot when I knock doors. So it's like perfect for me because like a lot of middle-aged women love plants and gardening too. So I use that to my advantage. So I knock on your door, you open the door, and I say, "Hey, like, what is that flower over there? It's gorgeous. Oh my gosh, like, what is that?" And they're like, "What? You know, I thought you were coming to sell me something or bother me or whatever." And all of a sudden, their mind is flipped. So then I can transition later into why I'm actually there. But honestly, I kind of push that conversation into building rapport. But it interrupts their brain, the pattern that they were in, whether that was like you said, the laundry or whatever they were doing before I got there. It breaks that pattern. It's the pattern interrupter, and can then help me transition into building rapport. So that's why it's so important. Is like there's no transition if you don't use something like that. And I think a lot of people probably do it and don't even know what they're doing also.
Yeah. So you talked a little bit about building rapport. Like, how does that pattern interruption go towards building trust and building that genuine connection with the customer? Because you're right. Like when I see somebody at my front door who's wearing, a polo from a roofing company
Yeah.
and has a clipboard or an iPad. I'm like, oh, this guy's coming to sell me something. Like I may not even want to talk to him today. I may just like pretend I'm not home, even if you could see my car in the driveway.
Yep.
So how does that moment, that pattern interruption really put you on that path towards building rapport and trust?
Well, the one of the keys with pattern interrupters is, well, there's two. It has to be about you, the customer, and not about me.
Mhm.
That's really, really important because it has to be something that's going to engage you. And what is the thing that people like the most? Themselves,
Oh,
right?
yeah.
So if I'm going to talk about something that's interesting to you, I'm going to talk about you. So when you're walking up to a door, whether that's, you're trying to set an appointment or you're coming to close an appointment, I'm looking for things, in your yard, maybe stickers on your vehicle, the type of vehicle you drive, what does your house look like? How do you care for it or not? Like I'm looking for things that what's my pattern interrupter? And when I'm training reps in the field, that's what I'm asking them, like, what's your PI? What's your pattern interrupter at this house as we walk up every single one? And once I got good at it, I realized that there's always something that I can use, even if it's like when they open the door, it's the kind of shoes they're wearing or the shirt, or there's always something, you know what I mean? So um what that does is, so that's the first part. It has to be about them. Two, it has to be genuine. I can't just make up some BS. I think that's like my opinion, at least with rapport in general, is like you can't fake rapport. You can't fake, being genuine. You have to really find things that you can relate with. So I would say that that's like kind of like how you transition into it and like why that's important. But I think that like if we're talking about rapport is like I think I asked this a lot in that training I just did, like what people think, like what do you think rapport is? What's your definition? And people had all these different ideas about what rapport is, and I think like to me the one that really hit the most is common ground. So to me, rapport is exactly that. It's common ground. So if I'm going to talk about something that like flowers and I don't like flowers, they're probably going to feel that. You know what I
Yeah, they'll
mean?
be able to call BS when you can't get to that
Yeah.
second level. Like, if you can
Yeah.
only do the first level question, they're like, you don't really know about
100%.
this, do you?"
100%. And maybe like if you're setting an appointment, maybe you can do something a little bit more surface level, maybe
Mhm.
slightly less genuine. But I think that like when people are buying, they're going to buy from people that are like them, you know? So that's what rapport is to me, is like, how can I make you feel like I'm like you, you know? So that can be, anything from bringing up the right pattern interrupter, or and then kind of building on that. Like I'll seriously talk about gardening more than I'll talk about roofing with some homeowners, because I
Yeah.
truly love gardening. Like I really enjoy it and I'm passionate about it. And okay, cool, we'll just sell a roof like while we're talking about like how you're going to redesign your garden beds. Like I'm totally cool with that. So I think that's kind of like that's how I use rapport in a lot of ways. But like I think that it has to be genuine. It has to be about them, and it has to be like a connection.
So I'm really excited to have you here because I have been sitting in on a lot of roundtables lately, and I've heard some really interesting things about customer behavior. And since you've been all over this industry and you talk to tons of leaders in this industry, I was curious about your opinion on this one specific topic that keeps coming up over and over and over again on these roundtables that I'm attending. And it is that customers seem to be doing more research than ever prior to their sales appointments. They are getting online, they are doing research on products, they're talking to people who've had these jobs done before, they are out here reading whatever they can to come in armed with all of the information that they think they need in a sales appointment.
Mm,
But I've also heard from a lot of our customers and a lot of folks in this industry that they're coming armed with information that doesn't necessarily apply to their job. It doesn't necessarily apply to their home, because they're not experts in this. They're
mm,
just regular homeowner. Like, it'd be like me trying to tell you what kind of windows I need on my house. I don't know. Like,
yeah.
I just live here. So I'm wondering what you're hearing out there, and how do you help sales representatives, sales professionals to use discovery to figure out, like, is what the customer saying relevant to their job? Is it accurate? And then how might they change their approach based on that discovery, that start of the sales interaction?
Yeah, I love that question, and I've been hearing a lot of that too. I think like to speak a little bit about like kind of what I'm seeing first is I'm seeing similar things, but I also think that like I'm a big Jim Rohn guy. I don't know if you know Jim Rohn.
I don't.
He's like one of the best personal development gurus. He's not alive anymore, but he has written a ton of books. There's a ton of stuff on YouTube. Go check him out. But he's one of his concepts is the seasons of life. Like spring is going to be the same as it always is. Summer's always the same, then fall, then winter, and it just keeps repeating. And there are seasons of a year, there are seasons of a day, there are seasons of your life. Some of us are in a winter, of our lives, and like things are challenging and whatever. But I think that like we all need to remember, I know I do sometimes, that like everything's going to be the way that it's always been. Like yes, there are trends, things change, whatever, but like there are four personality types that I see on a regular basis. And I kind of categorize them in a way that like Sam does a training on it called Bolt. So bull, owl, lamb, and tiger. So I think the person that you're referring to is an owl, and I am uniquely qualified to sell to owls because I am one. So it's always harder to sell to like personalities that aren't you, because obvious, like we just talked about in rapport, like if I can find common ground and I'm like you and you think I'm like you and you feel that connection, you're more likely to buy from me. So it's always easier to sell to like an owl for me. And I think that most salespeople are bulls and tigers, or a combination of bull tiger, maybe a little bit of lamb sometimes. Lambs are like those homeowners that you talk to, and they're like, oh yeah, I want to talk. They seem like buyers, but they never buy. They just like waste your time. So like there's tricks to know it. Like you need to know more about your homeowners so that you can identify, all right, how am I going to approach this situation? So I think like, yes, there are owls out there. There are people that like, so an owl is someone who like those engineer type minds, the ones that do tons of research, that like have spreadsheets and like all this data. Like you show up and you're like,
Yeah.
you
Yeah.
know,
I'm like, have you seen how I go on vacation? I make a full spreadsheet matrix with a different page for every day. And then there's a pivot table on the cover page that
yeah,
tells you where we're
you
going to
may
be.
you may be an owl.
Pretty sure I am. I was just joking with my team that whenever we go out like to restaurants as a business organization, I'm the one who's pulled the menu in advance and I come armed with two options for everything. Yeah, I think I might be an owl,
Yeah,
Chad. I think
yeah.
you may have gotten me.
And if you tell a bull that like I pulled the menu before we got there, they're like what? What are you talking about? So like
Mhm.
we all perceive the world in our own way, and like we all are, you can categorize each one of us into one of those areas. And I think that like, yes, there are more of those people that want, more information, and they're coming to the table with research and data and facts. So like it is becoming, I think, more and more important to know, okay, what do I do when I run into that customer? You know what I mean? Like what? And I think discovery questions are the answer. I think discovery questions are the answer either way, but I'm
Mhm.
definitely going to ask different questions, discovery questions, to a bull who like is just straight to the point. I don't want to BS or talk about. I don't. If you try to build rapport with me, I'm not going to buy. Like I don't want to. I'm going to ask that person different questions than an owl.
Mhm.
So an owl is hard, especially for someone who's a bull or tiger, because they're more like, they just don't think like an owl. And I think an
Mhm.
owl is kind of the outlier. Like we're the weirdos, I guess.
Not the
So
first time I've been called that.
yeah, me neither. Like I'm the nerd. I'm like the roof nerd. So I think that like selling for me, like, or selling for a lot of people is really emotional, and like telling stories, and I've learned to do that.
Mhm.
But like that's not me naturally. I naturally want to bring a spreadsheet and charts and like data. Like so I think that like the questions that I ask each individual personality are going to be different, but like what they do is they kind of like funnel that customer. You can, if you ask the right questions, what you're doing is you're funneling them to the place that you want them to be. So
Mhm.
they actually have to be really well thought out. And I think that like whether you use word tracks or a pitch, or those things. And I think Engaged is an amazing platform because like you literally don't have to remember it. It's right, it's, you have it every time right in front of you. It's incredible, and I think that's such a huge tool that you can use and have. So like maybe that's in your presentation, like already set and designed and ready to go. For me, it definitely is. It's in like a PowerPoint. My questions are already there. They're similar. I like the format's the same, but I'm gonna ask, maybe I'll skip certain ones for certain personalities.
Yeah.
But they're all gonna get me to the same place, and that's the yes. You know what I mean? So
Yeah, it's about personalizing your approach based
yes,
on what the customer
absolutely.
is forecasting to you, broadcasting to you in their behavior. Yeah, I like that.
Yeah.
So I think that this leads right into the next question I wanted to ask you. It's like we're trying to support our sales reps. We're trying to give them all the tools that they need to succeed. And part of that is that discovery document, if you will, however, whatever format that's in. So as a sales leader, How do you coach and train your team to shift away from that like order taker mindset? I think a lot of people have been stuck in that for the last few
Yeah,
years because we've just been so busy.
100%.
Towards more towards those engaging and meaningful conversations. We're talking a lot about building rapport, and I feel like there are a lot of reps out in the field who've never had to do this before because they
Yes.
got into this industry in 2020, 2021 when things were gangbusters.
Yep.
And now they're like, "Oh, every job I go out for has 3 quotes. Every homeowner is getting 3, 4 quotes for this job. I have to actually connect with them. I can't just give them a quote here and hope that we're going to close it." So, how do you work with sales teams to shift away from that order taker mindset more towards that meaningful conversation mindset?
Yeah, I mean, we see this every day at Door-to-Door Experts. I see it within my own roofing business. Like, I think a lot of people, I'll talk with CEOs on a regular basis that they tell me we don't have a training platform for sales. I'm like, what do you mean? Like,
My eyes just got very big for people who are listening and not watching when you said that.
yeah, yeah, like, you don't, you're let me get this straight. You have a product that you need to sell, but you don't have a training platform in which your people can learn how to do that how you want them. Like, that's insane to me, you know? But I can relate to it because I've worked for companies. Like, trust me, the first company that I worked for in construction as a sales rep, they handed me a ladder and a shirt and they said, "Go meet this guy." And I was off. That was my training. And I lasted 2 days. And that was a really good friend of mine's company too. Like, I was like, oh yeah, I'll go work for him because he's my friend. I had an awful experience because no one taught me how to really engage with the customer. So I think that, like, as sales leaders, there's two things I see. One, we need to have systems and structure. And maybe that's because I'm an owl. I don't know. But I truly believe in like systems as a foundation, but then, like, you can ad lib, you can, go off script, but you need to know the recipe first before you start adding, more salt or a different herb, or you know what I mean? Like, know how to do it right. So that's where I think, like, the right structure and systems, like, how off what is your meeting cadence with your reps? What is your are you training in these ones, or are you just getting them pumped? Are you like, what you need to know what you're doing, and you need to have like some organization to it. And then two, I think sales leaders need to be more important than anything else. You need to be going out to these roundtables, these conferences, these personal development places, whether they're conferences or seminars or boot camps or whatever, to get better. If you are not getting better, you are your reps ceiling. So your reps are always gonna they're always gonna hit wherever high, however high you are, however good you are, that's how good your reps can get. So the better you get, you're actually leveling up your entire team. So systems and ops inside of sales, and definitely, like, you as a leader, you need to be leveling up. You need to be getting better so that you can bring the rest of your team up with you.
Yeah, I think that again feeds right into the next question I wanted to ask you, which is about retaining sales reps, because we know how expensive it is to find sales talent and train sales talent. And like as a sales leader, as a business owner, you're putting thousands of dollars into every single new hire. And the ramp time, it's many weeks to get somebody, performing
Yes.
the way that you want them to. You're looking at, several weeks just in basic training, and then they're out in the field, you're doing ride-alongs, maybe they're shadowing people, like, it's a long process. So, what are some of the strategies or initiatives that you found effective in creating a positive work environment so that you can retain those employees, retain those top salespeople, that top talent?
Man, that is the question, right?
It is the million-dollar
That
question is
is
how do we
the
retain
question.
these top performers?
Yeah. So I think the answer. that I have, as I could go down a couple of different routes. I'll start with this. Like, people people stay with good leaders. They don't, and they quit bosses. Okay. So like, if you're a boss and you're not a leader, you will not retain people. So you need to figure out how to be a leader rather than if that's what you are. If you're a leader, you have a shot, but you need you need structure. Like we were so I started this new roofing company maybe a month and a half ago, and we're going at it pretty hard, because we've done this before. I've partnered up with two people that we've all owned, really successful companies. We've sold whatever, and so we're hitting the ground running. And that is like the hardest thing to like start from 0 reps to like 5 or 10 reps is the hardest. That's the hardest one. Because there's no momentum, and there is no culture. It doesn't exist. You know what I mean? Like, you're the culture. So, which can be good or bad. I think we have an amazing person in place for that. I think that's really a key, is like the person who is that sales leader. They need to be magnetic. They need to be People need to want to follow them. And then what you do is you create the right systems and structure. So, like, one example of a system or a piece of structure that you can add if you don't have it now is the correct comp plan. So, like, if you don't have, and so what I mean by comp plan for us, it's two pieces. It's what you get paid, how you get paid, all the details with that. But it's also, how do you progress within the company? Because yes, we all want to know how we get paid. That's very important to us, and your reps need to know that. But your ramp setter, like the guy or girl who's just started with you, they're just knocking doors, setting appointments. They need to know, okay, where do I go next? What's the carrot? You know what I mean? And carrots are good things. I think that some people like view carrots as like with a negative connotation. I love carrots. I have, like, you guys can't see this, but like in front of me, I have 8 different categories of like my life. That's how I break down my goals. And I have 5 to 7 goals per category. And they are in front of me at all times when I'm at my desk. And
Hmm.
they're my carrots. They're like what pulls me forward. So you need a rep progression program or a path that, like, your reps can, all right, I do this, I hit these metrics, I learn this, I read this book, then I can progress to this level of
Hmm.
this job. Cool. And I think having more steps, like just within like a setter position, you could have like 4 different like reps. You know what I
Hmm.
mean? Like different tiers
Yeah.
that, and I think that like a lot of people think that you need to incentivize with with money all the time, and that's just not true. I
Hmm.
think like a lot of people, when I'm saying this, they're like just saying dollar signs, and that's not the case. So a lot of the time, just going from this level to this level to this level, this level inside of a setter position, all you have is a different color hat and shirt, and that means so much more than you can
Hmm.
ever imagine. Being able to show up as a rep, salespeople are competitive. So you can use that competition kind of against them for them. Um,
Hmm.
like, hey, like, you get this next color shirt, or you get this like ceremony or presentation when you hit these metrics and you move to the next level and you make it this cool, amazing thing. And
Hmm.
um, it's a big deal, and you're just missing out on opportunities if you don't have that progression, and you're losing people because there are other companies that do have that.
Hmm.
So, like, as a rep, I'm going to find the company that has a future for me. As a human being, I want to see more than what's right now. So have a
Yeah.
rep progression. That's the number one thing you could do, is have a rep progression program. The other, I don't know if we have time, but um, the other is recruiting.
Mm.
So I could talk about that for a while. Talk
Well,
about
I think we talked
for you.
about that on our webinar. So I think if people
Oh,
are
we might have.
interested in hearing about how you approach recruiting, they should go check out the webinar that we did. It's on our
Yeah.
Engage YouTube. Like, go check that out because that had great information on recruiting. But I think that what you just said about having like carrots ahead of every step for these reps is really important because a stick doesn't work on a lot of people.
Yes.
It really
Especially
doesn't work.
reps.
Yeah.
Especially reps. Yep.
Yeah, you're not going to get them by telling, everything's always wrong or by constantly pointing out what's wrong. You need to give them something to strive for. What's next? What's that next step? Where am I going?
Yep.
And that keeps people interested.
Yep. Yeah, and you do need like culture to me is like what you accept. So I think a lot
Mhm.
of people think they kind of like mistake culture for perks.
Yeah.
They think it's like the ping pong table and the soda machine in the office, and like it's like nah, those are perks. Those are cool,
Yeah.
and those are important too. But like culture is what you accept. So like if you're late to our meeting, you are doing push-ups. Period. Like, I'm sorry, you're doing or burpees, you know what I mean? Like,
Oh,
it's gonna
no.
suck.
No, burpees are the worst.
Yeah, so, like, we don't accept you to be like, we know you're a rep, sales reps have certain personalities, but, like, um, they may not always be organized or stick to calendars, but, like, it is important to have a standard, and the
Yeah.
higher the standard is, the people like, the new person is gonna see that.
Mhm.
So that also makes the rep progression program or path look more appealing when you see people that are at this high tier and they're freaking awesome, like they're always on time, they're always crushing it, their numbers are always huge.
Yeah.
People are going to see that who are new. That's why it's hard to get that first five, that
Yeah.
first five, first 10. Once
I could
that's
see that.
rolling, then it's easy. It just
Mhm.
snowballs off of that. So
Yeah. So, Chad, before we wrap up, I want to ask you the question. This is the question I ask every single guest who comes onto the Engaged podcast, and it is, what is one trend that every sales leader should be focused on right now?
ooh,
I know I saved the hardest one for last.
that is a tough question.
Yeah, I like to hit you with it as you've finished your brain dump, as you've given us all of the information you have to give. I ask you for that little bit more.
Yeah, I think we kind of talked about it. But like so I say this term a lot, and I do it with sales, and I do it like with recruiting and retaining reps, which I think is also sales. So you need to have the right incentives. Like, you as a customer, you need to know like why you're going with me, right? And I need to be able to convey that message clearly. As a leader, my all the people that come and work with me, they need to be able I need to be able to convey that message to them too. So I think that like one thing in like construction trade specifically is like I call them like crusty smoky roofers, because like I've like worked with a lot of crusty smoky roofers. I've been a crusty smoke, you know what I mean? Like, and I don't think there's anything wrong with like being, in the industry a long time or being a construction like blue collar person. Like, I am one of those, you know what I mean? Like, I come from that background, and I love that. I love working with my hands, and I love all that. But I think that like I'm really lucky in that I've been exposed as an expert at D2D Experts. I've been exposed to a lot of different industries. So pest control, solar, some like maybe slightly more advanced industries when it comes to marketing and sales. So I think that like there are some things that construction trades do super super well, and also bad, but like there are some things we're really good at, and I think it's good to lock into those. But like one thing I think construction trades do really bad at is sales and marketing. So adopting new, more modern ideas and techniques from other industries, I think is going to be the key to being successful as a contractor. Working as a rep or a sales leader within a contracting company, you need to be progressing at a different speed. And if you do that, I think that you are going to light up your competition. Like, I really don't think that people are going to be able to keep up with you.
Well, I think that's a great place to leave off. So thank you so much for joining us today, Chad. It was great to have you on.
Thank you so much, Pam. I really appreciate it.
Thanks for listening to the Ingaged podcast. Be sure to visit ingage.io for more information on how to create, share, and measure your way to success. If you love the Ingaged podcast, we'd love for you to subscribe, rate, and review us wherever you listen to podcasts. Until next time.